Midsommar, directed by Aster, starring Florence Pugh, Jack Reynor, and William Jackson Harper. A couple travels to Sweden to visit a rural hometown's fabled Midsummer Festival. What begins as an idyllic retreat quickly devolves into an increasingly violent and bizarre competition at the hands of a pagan cult. Hereditary was my favorite film of 2018, so my anticipation for this film was incredibly high. This is one of my most anticipated films of 2019, and I have to say that it totally delivered on everything that I could have possibly wanted. This is a very different film from Hereditary. If you're expecting that constant sense of dread and the really intense scenes like Hereditary had, this film has some of that, but it's not nearly as intense as Hereditary. And a lot of that has to do with the location of the film. It's incredibly beautiful, it's green, it's bright, it's gorgeous, and it's very idyllic. So already the scene is set that this is a very different type of location from Ari Aster's first film. However, that sense of dread and that there's something off is consistently throughout the film. It's not something that goes away. Something feels off throughout the entire runtime. Now, this film is about 2.5 hours long. Know that going in. It builds on itself over time. And I felt that the time flew by while I was watching this film. I also have a tendency to really enjoy art house horror films. So if you are a fan of films like that, if you enjoyed Hereditary, and also if you enjoyed the original Wicker Man, you will most likely enjoy Midsommar. Just like with Hereditary, this film is expertly shot. This is a beautiful film, from the cinematography to the set design to the costume design. Everything in this film has such amazing attention to detail, and there are some really great shots in this film, and especially with the editing, where you'll transition from our main character Danny going in to a bathroom in her friend's house, and then all of a sudden she's in the bathroom on an airplane going to Sweden. And that happens quite a few times, where the transitions are so seamless. It also has this kind of dreamlike state to it. You have the world that they were in before when they're in America. It's dark, it's kind of drab, there aren't any bright colors, everything is really muted, and quite frankly, it's pretty depressing. And it reminded me of the color tones that were used in Hereditary. But once we get to Sweden, specifically once we get to the celebration, it totally changes. It's bright, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous. But once our characters start to take mushrooms and other psychedelics, that's when a lot of the really interesting color palettes start to come in, and where you'll actually see plants and flowers and even food that's on a table start to breathe. And it's really unsettling, but at the same time, beautiful. Florence Pugh as Danny is incredible. This is the first time I've ever seen her. I know she's been in other films, but this is my very first time seeing her in a film, and I loved her. I was rooting for her the entire film, and I completely identified with her and what she was going through and the grief that she was feeling from this immense loss that she had just suffered. And she just played that with such pitch perfect performance. I also felt that the supporting cast was also really good. They all played their roles perfectly. The cultists I thought were great, and again, the costuming and the set designs is stunning and beautiful. There's not one bad performance in this film. I loved every single bit of it. I have heard some comments about this film being funny. I didn't really find very much humor in this film. There's a couple of jokes. It doesn't feel like it's out of place because it's a character who doesn't really understand good social cues, and this guy kind of does these jokes that didn't land for me, and I don't know if they were really supposed to. The guys, the American guys, they just kind of came off as clueless bros, and I didn't really like any of them, but I also felt like that was intentional because it was a really great juxtaposition between these really clueless dudes and these cultists. As far as the horror element is concerned, it's not necessarily a scary film. Hereditary will get under your skin. This film has some shocking moments, absolutely, and when they do happen, I felt like it was earned. But don't go into this expecting an all-out horror film, because it really isn't. A lot of the film deals with grief and loss and how people deal with it or don't deal with it. Overall, I absolutely enjoyed Midsommar. I thought it was a fantastic film. I was glued to the screen. The 2.5-hour runtime flew by for me, and there was not one moment that bored me. I was genuinely invested in the story, and I was invested in the character of Danny. I wanted to see what was going to happen next, and that's the most you can ask for in a film, is being truly invested in your main character. I'm really looking forward to watching this film again because on a first watch, I can absolutely tell that there are other subtleties that I may have missed in my first watch. And that's why, for me, this is an instant classic. There's only one other film that has gotten that rating this year, and that was Climax, and Midsommar has dethroned Climax as my favorite horror film and favorite film of 2019. Every single bit of this film I enjoyed, from the acting, to the cinematography, to the storyline, to the amazing editing. I cannot get over how well this film was edited. It was done with so much style and so seamless to where it was difficult to find exactly how they edited the film the way that they did. Again, don't go into this film expecting something like Hereditary. It's very different, and it's very much a film that you have to be in the right mind state for. It's quite hypnotic, and I found that as I was watching the film, especially once the character starts to go down that psychedelic trip. It really gets into this kind of hypnotic state, and it was absolutely beautiful, and it's one of my favorite cinematic experiences of 2019 so far. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like. And if you want to see more content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for coming by, and I'll see you guys next time.